have on the show this morning, son of a legendary Hubert Ogunde. You see the face and you know that what we're saying is true. We're joined by Mr. Hubert Ogunde, who played Basharu in the movie Anikulapo Rise of Spectre. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the morning brief.
Good morning.
I feel like I'm in the presence of, you know, Nollywood theater history right now, and there needs to be some sort of comportment. But how do you feel every time when people see you, and you say you don't see the resemblance, but I can see it, particularly for those who knew him, who fell in love with his work, big fans, and before social media, by the way. So those were real fans who had to travel, who had to find ways to watch the black and white television set. But how do you feel to carry, I don't know if you feel like you carry a weight on your shoulders, but how does it feel to have come from that lineage of creativity and greatness?
I think it's fantastic. First of all, let me thank you for having me this morning. It is fantastic. I think how I feel, it's something that's very difficult to explain, because I've always been his son. Yeah. I lived with him, I grew up with him, so it's just always been, that's just my life. It's always been my life, so
interesting.
Nothing is different.
I saw a picture of you, I think it was from the 80s. You put up a picture on social media.
That is correct.
First of all, you've not changed much, so I was a bit confused.
Thank you.
If it's a picture taken in 2020 or 1980s. You're the last son.
I am the last son, yes.
And you were born in this, and you've had to travel around, perform in, theaters and the rest. So would you say this was basically just inborn, or something you had to develop yourself, focus on it, and hone your skill?
See, I was born in England.
That's a picture, yeah?
Yeah, that's my pictures in the late 80s.
Exactly.
I was born in England in the late 60s when my father traveled to Edinburgh Festival to perform for the first time with his large ensemble. And from that point onwards, I grew up, I live theater. I'm woken up every day by the sound of drums, and the entire family, we all participate in acting. And my first stage play was in Aropintenio, playing Oriadekingwe at Glover Hall. And I left school at a very young age to work for my father. So that's my first introduction to acting, working with people like Kunle Afolayan's dad, Adi Love, Aisho Pepe, Edauniliola. Those are the people that I grew up with. Ogabelu, Aluwe. So those are the people I grew up with. His last film, I was on the location. You certainly see some of those pictures come through, Ayomo, which was shot in Ososa in 1986. And in 1990, he passed. We did a stage play, so I actually acted as a young Adediji in the stage play at National Theatre. And then after that, I traveled and moved away from acting, because when he passed, it was almost like a chapter has closed. I kind of fell out of love with acting and show business. And then quite recently, I have been feeling the fact that it's almost like you're walking away, or you've walked away from your destiny, from what you're called to do. But one way or the other, I met Kunle less than a year ago.
No way.
We met actually in London, March 16. In fact, I remember 4 p.m. because the appointment was 4 p.m. at Oxford Circus. And we met and we went out for a drink. And it was during that jolly that he sounded the idea that, do you know that I have something coming up? And I think you're going to be wonderful. And you cannot reject it, because I heard the voice of your father telling me that you have to be in this movie. Really?
That's how he got
I thought, really?
Couldn't say no to that one.
He actually said, you cannot say no to this. So I thought it was a joke. 3 days later, I got the script. I read it. And I felt straight away that it was magical, because you could definitely see the various characters, their voice. When you read many scripts, you can tell there are times that the script, it feels like all the characters speaks in a monotone and they all sound almost the same, but these are very unique characters. And the one that he wanted me to play, which is Basharon, is the villain of this movie. We saw it last night at the premiere. It's exciting, mind-blowing.
So just like your history has shown, do you have strong bias for language movie, indigenous movies, epic movies? Is that where your strong bias is?
No. First, I mean, for the last 32 years I've lived in England, so I'm comfortable with the English language, as you can tell. But I'm also comfortable with Yoruba language because I grew up here in Lagos at Alagumeji. I went to Bobi College. And then later on, when I started working for my father, I moved to Ijebu. So I speak a little bit of Ijebu as well. So I'm comfortable with both Yoruba language as well as English language, of course. Do I have a bias? This is history. This is who we are.
Yeah.
This is how I was brought up. I was brought up in rich, traditional Yoruba culture. So definitely I will have something. There's something about that.
That's precisely what I was asking, because some people, because of the depth of heritage and the ability to be able to tell that story better than English language, which we all speak English, but there's something about language and depth that comes with certain level of heritage and originality that makes them a lot more comfortable. That's the premise of my question, actually.
I get your point, and I think when you watch different films or you watch a number of actors, you can tell when they move from their native language to English language. You notice that something has sort of been lost in translation between those two. But I think that's probably down to training. It's down to character development, the ability to kind of understand and also understand language, what to stress and what not to stress, etc. I think that's the reason why you notice that difference. So with training, I don't think you'd notice the difference.
No.
Well, we're going to have to thank Mr. Afolayan for bringing you back home.
I'm thanking him too.
Yes. So you said earlier that when your father passed, it was like, you know, a big loss for you that made you abandon, for want of a better word now, the work. So what resonates with you from Anikulapo in relation to the body of work that your dad left behind? And in addition to that, is this also a calling to preserving or returning the Ogunde theatre play that your father established?
I hope so. I think you're certainly aware that from an Ogunde perspective, we have been quiet for a while. We have not produced any film or theatre for a while. I'm hoping that following this movie, that we will, become active in this space. That's my hope. Yeah. I certainly plan to be very active going forward. One of the first things Kunle said to me is that his vision is to produce quality and the sort of plays and the performances that our parents used to do. And that resonated with me. That got me, that if you wanted to kind of go to that level, because they pushed the boundaries in terms of what was possible. I mean, my father made films in 35mm, and in the 80s, that is the movie. There is nothing else that's better than 35mm from a quality perspective. And he used to go to England to get all of the crews to come to Nigeria to handle all of the technical aspects of the movie. So for that period, that is pushing the boundary. What Kunle is doing for this period is also pushing the boundary in terms of technicalities. Kunle, from my perspective, from what I have seen working with him in this movie, he has a unique ability to understand human emotion and to capture that human emotion through cinematography. it's amazing. I mean, he certainly showed me that I'm capable of something that I didn't even know I was capable of. And you see all of that when this movie.
I actually look forward to seeing how you'll interpret. Because you're soft-spoken, like the quintessential gentleman, speak very good English. So I'm looking forward to seeing
my
Yoruba, your Yoruba, and how you interpret the villain in that. It's not a movie; it's a series actually. It's a sequel of the Anikulapo itself. So. What just hit me as you were speaking? So you talked about your father a lot, Hubert Ogunde. You talked about Aisha Pepe Shola. You talked about Adi Love. You've talked about some of these people. And for a lot of young Nigerians, and you'll forgive them for that, they don't know these people. And you'd understand why, because they grew up on social media. And so if it's not maybe Ramsey Noah, even for some people, Ramsey Noah is kind of old generation, because there's now a newer generation in place. So is there something when you look at Nollywood today, do you think we have come of age well enough? Do you think we have, ripened well enough? Are we losing where we're coming from, all of these people who built the foundation, not just for Yoruba movies, even for Igbo and Kannywood and the rest? Do you think we've come of age well enough? Are we still in touch with where we're coming from?
Well, I think it's clear that we're not in touch with where we're coming from, and there's a number of reasons for that. One is history, how we document history. I think that is something that we still need to be better at, and also how we teach history. I think a lot of the history, certainly from this era, quite a lot of them have been lost. I was speaking to someone yesterday that talked about theater and only mentioned Hubert Ogunde. And I wondered, and I asked the person, said, have you heard of Drola Dipo? Have you heard of Ogumola? These are fabulous people. They were my father's contemporary. I mean, I met those people at a very young age. I know that Drola Dipo was there, the First Act 77, and the rest of them. So I think a lot of those things have been lost, and that's the reason. But hopefully with social media, we now have documentation that hopefully will kind of sustain us going into the future.
So there is an upswing, some sort of a progression. Now we're hitting box office. I think I read the other day it's a 1.4 billion naira movie now. Box office was a Tribe Called Judah.
Yes.
So this is you, given the cross-culture you've experienced and your rich heritage, general counsel to movie makers as well as the government as to begin, how can they see strongly beyond talk to know that this can be another big cash cow for the country beyond oil? Maybe there's a perspective you share, because when we talk about California being the 6th largest economy in the world, bigger economy than the entire Africa at the last count, made up of Silicon Valley and Hollywood, just those two alone are those big numbers. How do we, repurpose ours since we're getting these numbers and sustain it? Let it not look like this is just a rave of the hour.
I think there's a government has certainly a large role to play when it comes to this. If you look at UK, where I'm based at the moment, we have arts funding that is available to support arts, support theater. There are various ways in which the government can provide infrastructure, and those infrastructure may be something that people can benefit for, either by paying a very low fees, etc. But there is so much that the government can do, even from a tax perspective, reduce tax, having, again, as I said earlier on, it's mainly just funding and support. Whenever an infrastructure like train is required, it's easy to have access to buildings. And also they have a role to play as well in preserving culture, establishing a museum where we can keep some of the things that memorabilias that people can go to see regularly, and also put in school curriculums as well. Because I know that my father, for example, if you study in theater, he's one of the people that you have to study in your first year. I think that has certainly been helpful, and those are the things that we need to do. We've started, but there's quite a lot more that can be done.
Apparently you are high on documentation of history and preservation of, our rich cultural heritage. Speaking of which, do you think that Nollywood is, filling its role in that regard with the retelling of stories like Death and the King's Horseman, which was produced recently, Anikulapo, that you have featured in, and what's the name of the other one about a storyteller that was produced recently? Do you think Nollywood is filling that role, and is it doing it well enough?
I think when you compare Nollywood with its contemporary like Bollywood and Hollywood, Nollywood is still fairly young. Really started not too long ago. So I think Nollywood, we certainly have a long way to go in determining even where we want to go, how we want to kind of work together and preserve this thing that we call Nollywood. There's a lot of work that we need to do to kind of create a future for ourselves and have different groups that can support the development, have a management team that supports the development of the industry, because that's what they do abroad. And that's, we can learn a lot from America, we can learn a lot from India as well in developing this industry for ourselves.
What a conversation we've had. I love the angle, the slant it took, trying to connect the past with our future and our present as well. But before we wind down, you need to give us your favorite line from the Anikulapo series. In Yoruba, by the way.
Oh, you made me laugh. My favorite line.
Or you can just simulate something so we can see you in character for a moment.
In character, wow.
It has to be Yoruba. It's Yoruba I want to hear.
You need makeup. You need makeup. You need all sorts. Okay. Well, if you have seen the trailer, then you'll have seen the very end of the trailer. My character comes in to speak to the king, and he goes, "Sieri ajebirin, eti o fi ogun re de imole, amu asipa." Soju de oja.
Look at that.
What does that mean?
That's seamless.
What does it mean?
There is a witch woman who has used her charm to hold you down. We will catch her and kill her in the middle of the market.
Oh, fantastic.
I can hear the villain voice.
I am trying.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing it already.
Absolutely. We have to thank you so much. Bashir, by the way, is in the Yoruba culture, is a warrior.
Yes, he's the leader of the army. He's the senior chief.
Right.
And it's always in conflict with the king. But in this movie, Bashir is one of the richest people in town.
Wow.
And he just wants to dominate.
Interesting. He's been cornering all the defense contracts. Mr. Ogunde, we have to thank you so much. Please, Bashir, in the movie Anikulapo Rise of a Spectre. Thank you for your time. He's the son of a legendary Hubert Ogunde. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
So there you have it. That's the show for today, everyone. Hey, I'm Kayode Okikelu.
A wonderful way to begin the week. Let's do this again tomorrow and throughout the week. I am Bukola Koka.
And there's a lot more coming by tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Ozonga. Bye-bye.